The anime starts when the main character opens his eyes, clearly confused when he notices that he doesn't know where he is. A woman smiles at him, and he knows that she's his mother, but there's something that doesn't add up because he remembers that his mother was different. When he raises his hand, he realizes it's the hand of a baby, and he can barely move. He doesn't know what's going on, but he somehow can see his stats, and notices that his level has gone back to 1, and he has no name. His mother speaks to an old man as Her Majesty, which makes him think he might be an emperor. The emperor then decides to name him Noah Ararat with the title of 13th Imperial Prince. Noah is surprised to see his own title, because that's a title given only to the son of an emperor, a noble among nobles. The emperor asks what his affinity is, and his servant, Cruz, tells him that it's water. The emperor then says that his fief will be Almeria, a land where many of the water clan reside. As soon as he says that, Noah sees that his stats changed, and his water affinity is now E+S. He doesn't understand what it means, because he's never seen values like these. With that matter settled, the emperor asks Cruz to show him his skills, so he casts an enchantment on Noah. That way, his stats are displayed to everyone in the room, and Noah is surprised to see that the value he saw has changed. His mother mentions that it's so much higher than when he was born, and Cruz says that this means he is already awakened. All the people witnessing are shocked, because no one has ever heard of anyone reaching SS at that age. Whatever the case, Noah just knows that he has been granted a new life and reincarnated as a noble. Mir's empire is a nation of warriors nestled in a craggy mountain range, and the capital is situated on an open plain. As it enjoys its golden age in which wealth begets wealth, a rich, resplendent culture now blooms in this nation. Its emperor is the father to over 10 sons known as the imperial princes, who are revered and adored by the people as the most renowned of nobles. 6 years after his reincarnation, Noah has realized something, and it's that everyone sees his stats differently. To everyone else, it looks like he's SS, but what he sees is that he's E+S. These are additions made by his subordinates, and the S added to water, for example, came from Almeria, the fief he was granted at birth, and the others came from his maids. In other words, he can grow stronger by gaining more subordinates, and his level apparently can be raised infinitely. Noah leaves his room after he's ready, and the maids praise him for his looks and behavior. After all, a boy his age would be full of mischief, but he is actually very calm and composed. Despite everything, Noah knows that his capabilities are quite limited at age 6. During breakfast, Evelyn, a beautiful maid who specializes in hospitality, informs him that the crown prince and the 4th prince have come to visit, but they say he can take his time eating before going to see them. Noah is sure that he most certainly can't do that, since it's the crown prince, so he decides to stop what he's doing and asks her to take him at once. Once in front of them, Noah kneels in respect to greet them, and meets the 2nd prince, Albert Ararat, a 29-year-old man who is the crown prince. The 4th prince, Henry Ararat, also greets him, mentioning that Noah is as courteous as ever, so he'll be a fine chancellor one day. Noah tells them that he will do his best to achieve that, and Albert tells him that they have a present for him today. He claps his hands twice, and the door suddenly opens, letting in a suspicious, dark aura. A man struggles to carry something that looks like a small coffin inside, and once he places it on the floor, Albert orders him to open it. Noah immediately perceives the screams and suffering from countless people in despair, begging Prince Albert to save them. All of these horrible things are coming from the sword in the coffin, and Noah doesn't know what to say. Albert simply asks him to pick it up, and Noah knows that he can't reject a gift from the crown prince, so he has no choice but to pick it up with both hands. He manages to lift it despite how heavy it is, and Albert is seemingly impressed, but not surprised. He mentions that the sword is called Leviathan. It is a water magic sword known as the strongest in the empire, and around 120 people have died trying to master it. Noah's grip falters when he hears that, and he panics when he almost drops the crown prince's gift. Henry asks him not to worry, and explains that those not meant to wield it are killed by its curse the moment they lift it. Albert tells him that, for most people, just carrying the box is agonizing, but apparently, one with water affinity at level SS can wield it. He thanks him before leaving, saying that this has been a valuable demonstration. Noah realizes that despicable crown prince was just testing him, and even though it makes him angry, he knows that he's dead if he says anything. Once they're outside, Henry asks Albert if that decision was wise, because that sword must be priceless. Albert tells him that it doesn't matter, because it's better off in the hands of someone as brilliant as Noah. Besides, it's precisely because he's so brilliant that he needs to experience being bitten by his own pet. That night, Noah notices that his personal maid, Zoe, has been acting a little off, so he asks her if anything's wrong since she looks clearly unhappy. Zoe apologizes and tries to avoid the subject, but Noah firmly insists, not giving her a choice. Zoe kneels before him and decides to be honest, telling him that she would like to request some time off. Noah asks her if something happened, and she informs him that there was a flood in her hometown recently. The farm where she grew up was washed out, and her mother, who lives alone, is now out of work. Zoe explains that her relatives have told her to work in the red light district, and they say that even she could sell herself as someone who served a prince. Noah stops her right there, saying that he's heard enough, and just like that, he decides that he will employ her mother at the mansion. He'll put her in charge of locking the rear gate, and he'll pay her 10 rien per month. Zoe is clearly surprised to hear that, because she has never heard of such a job, and that is far higher than the standard wage. Noah tells her that that there is an unused house in the western outskirts of the capital, so she and her mother can use it. After processing his words, Zoe quickly starts tearing up, feeling really grateful. Noah simply asks her to continue her work, because he knows that if he allows a former servant of his to work in the red light district, he'll sully the title of 13th Prince. Zoe is his servant, so she will serve him for life. Once that's settled, Noah calls his butler Dylan and asks him if he knew about the flood in Zoe's hometown Daso. Dylan tells him that he was aware, and Noah orders him to buy as much of the land there as possible. This surprises both Dylan and Zoe, so Noah explains that there will be villains trying to con people who've lost their livelihoods, like Zoe's family, out of their fortunes, so they must secure them before that happens. Dylan can't hide his surprise, saying that he wasn't expecting to see him handling a situation he's never experienced before with such foresight. Deep down, Noah knows that he saw more than his share of it before he reincarnated, but he clearly can't say something like that. Dylan asks him how he should procure the funds, because by his estimate, that would require approximately 700,000 rien. Now Zoe is the one who can't hide her surprise, but Noah doesn't blame her for that. After all, the average annual income of an adult man in the capital is 120 rien, and even his own retainers earn 8,000 rien per year. Adding in the tax revenue from Almeria and the monetary gifts from the emperor, the 13th prince's household has about 500,000 rien to work with, so that leaves 200,000 rien. Noah then mentions that they'll have to sell the land they own south of the capital. Dylan clearly wasn't expecting that order, because that land was a gift from the emperor, and to sell it without his permission would be a crime against the imperial family. Even so, Noah insists, saying that he will accept his father's reproach later. Dylan and Zoe try to make him change his mind, but Noah tells them that nobles have their obligations, and sometimes they must sacrifice themselves to bring happiness to as many of their people as possible. Playing the martyr is one of the privileges of the nobility, so he won't back down now. A little impressed, Dylan accepts his decision, willing to follow his orders, but before he can leave, he makes sure to thank him sincerely. Noah then remembers that Dylan also came from that same area, and that's why he feels so grateful. The next day, Zoe takes care of the preparations for their trip, and Henry decides to show up to see how Noah is doing. Noah and his maids immediately kneel before the fourth prince, and Henry asks him if he's going somewhere. Noah informs him that he's purchasing land in an area called Daso, which is flooded, so he's going to inspect it. Henry notices the coffin that contains the magic sword in one of the carriages, so he decides to speak to him alone and asks him if he's planning to use it. Noah denies it since he sensed some sort of power in it, but he hasn't felt it since then, so he's just taking it with him as a test. Henry tells him that since Albert said such strange things, he looked into it, and it seems that sword has a will of its own. Apparently, it only obeys the one it recognizes as its master. Noah quickly understands that he must earn its recognition, and all the pain and despair he sensed when he first saw the sword now makes sense, since it's like a mad dog. Henry tells him that he can carry it with him if he must, but he shouldn't use it, or else he'll die. Once that's clear, Noah finally leaves, and in no time, he's in Daso with his subordinates, seeing what's left after the flood. As soon as he takes a look at the place, he orders Dylan to go to the government office. After all, from the looks of it, he'd say most of the ruined homes lost their land deeds as well, so they will have to purchase them based on the government office's lists. Zoe is amazed that he ascertained that from just one look, and Noah asks Dylan to hurry, saying that he'll assume responsibility if anything happens. Dylan follows his orders and leaves, so Noah asks Zoe to accompany him, since he needs to know the lay of the land. After hiding their identities, the two of them enter the land, and Noah notices that the root vegetables have already started to rot, so there will be no harvest this year. Before they go any further, Zoe tries to warn him that this is dangerous, and he doesn't need to go this far. Noah tells her that if she insists on stopping him, then he'll sneak alone overnight. Just as she's about to protest, they hear a loud noise, and the people from Daso starts gathering. Zoe mentions that they're distributing food, so it looks like the Empire is doing its job. They decide to have a serving to inspect the food, but just looking at it already says a lot. It is so bland, and it's barely more than boiled water. But the worst part is that it tastes horrible, since it's already spoiled. Noah can't believe it is so bad, but an old man tells him that they can't ask for too much, because they're just lucky they get to eat, even if it's this, so they must accept it gratefully. Noah still thinks that it's unacceptable that the Empire is distributing food like this. Just then, the local government official, Lord Garrel, arrives to do an inspection, so Noah decides to observe quietly. The man takes a look at the pot, and even though the food looks and smells hideous, he confidently says that it looks all right. The cook laughs and thanks him for his praise, saying that his portion is ready in the mansion. Garrel seems satisfied enough, but that's when Noah decides to approach him, asking him if he's getting kickbacks for this. Garrel laughs smugly in his face, saying that he talks big even though he's such a little boy. He tells him that this is tough work for them too, so taking a little something in return is a privilege afforded to those of them who give so much. Garrel and his men laugh loudly, but Noah warns them that calling him a child is condescending, and getting rich off of rations intended for disaster victims is a crime. Garrel starts getting tired of him, so he draws his sword and threatens him, saying that to insult him is to insult Rowan, the ruler of this land. Noah interrupts him and tells him that tyrannizing the weak to curry favor with the strong is unacceptable. Noah asks him if he'd like to hear what his sentence is, but before Garrel can say anything, Noah tells him that it's death. As soon as he says that, Leviathan flies right into his hand, and he instantly can feel how strong it truly is. Despite this, he doesn't seem intimidated, and says that the strong only flaunt their power before the weak because they fear someone even stronger. Leviathan rages at that, and Noah tells it that if it was born strong, and if it succeeded in being born strong, then it must use that power for the good of the people, because that is his privilege as a noble. With that, he takes a hold of Leviathan and orders the sword to obey him. Once he masters the sword, Noah doesn't hesitate, and uses it to slice Garrel's head off his body. Garrel's subordinates immediately try to attack him, so Noah tries to defend himself. However, with just a swing of his sword, Leviathan lets out way too much power, and that opens a deep crater in the ground, one so deep he can't even see the bottom. Noah can tell that Leviathan truly is insane, and Garrel's subordinates instantly panic, running directly to the ruler of the land for help. Rowan Green, the knight captain who rules Dasso, sees Noah and immediately recognizes him. Without hesitation, he quickly kneels before him, apologizing for being unaware that the 13th prince was visiting. Rowan properly introduces himself and explains that he was only recently appointed to maintain security in this region, since he's a servant of Prince Henry's house. All the people around starts whispering things, so Rowan scolds them and lets them know that they're in the presence of the 13th prince. Almost instantly, everyone kneels before Noah, and he decides to inform Rowan that someone hired these food distributors for kickbacks. He already punished the man behind it all, so he wants him to deal the punishment deserved for his accomplices. They'll start over with the food distribution, so he needs them to add more to that soup, so much that he can stand a spoon in it and it won't fall. Rowan accepts his orders without a doubt, saying that he'll do it even if it costs him his life. The old man from before raises his head, realizing that they will actually get to eat proper food. Just hearing this makes all the people of Dasso cheer happily, revering the 13th prince with devotion. In no time, one of Albert's servants informs him about what happened in Dasso. Albert is clearly surprised that Noah not only didn't get bitten, but Leviathan actually submitted to him. That makes him believe that he may be even more useful than he thought. Soon after what happened, Noah is summoned by his father, the emperor, though it's nothing he wasn't expecting already. The emperor mentions that he heard the reports, so he knows that he sold the land he granted him and bought an entire village. Noah already saw this coming, so he prepares for the scolding of his life. However, instead of a severe reprimand, the emperor actually thanks him, saying that his efforts have prevented the emergence of anyone trying to take advantage of the flood. Were this natural disaster followed by a man-made disaster, they would have had to commit imperial resources to cleaning up the mess. The emperor asks him how he learned of this, and Noah tells him that it was coincidental, since one of his maids happens to be from that village. Even so, the emperor tells him that Providence also played a part, and he mastered a water magic sword in that village. Since it has been some time, the emperor says that he wants to see Noah's abilities again. Cruz casts his spell on him to show his stats, and just then, Noah realizes that it's not just human subordinates that can add to his stats, because the sword also counts. This isn't what he usually sees, and now, water is SSS with no plus sign to others, but to him, it's E plus SS. The emperor is clearly impressed by this, so he asks Noah to continue to aid him with his talents. In another scene, it is explained that the capital of the Mir's Empire is the center of the nation's government, the heart of its culture, and its financial center. Because of that, at some point, the people began to call it the most prosperous city in the world. Noah decides to visit that city, specifically Raid Street, because the eunuchs were saying there's a popular singer here. He gave Zoe more work to thank her for her help with her home village, so she's now accompanying him. After all, she does good work and pays attention to the smallest details, so she has really grown up. When they enter the place, Noah is surprised by the singer's voice, whose name is Alice. As she sings for the public, Noah admits that she isn't bad at all, and her technique has room for improvement, but he can tell that she sings earnestly and takes it seriously. She's clearly a conscientious girl, and he's actually enjoying her performance right now. However, the show gets suddenly interrupted by a group of thugs, who specifically approach Alice and ask her why she's wasting her time singing in here. The owner of the place tries to stop them, but one of the thugs pushes him away. He tells Alice that she isn't going to earn enough to pay off her father's debt that way. Alice tries to tell him that this is all she has, but the man harshly grabs her by her clothes and asks her not to make him explain the best way for a woman to make money. Noah decides to intervene, walking up to the stage and saying that the Article 2 of the Imperial Law says that it is illegal to make children assume their parents' debts. That's why making Alice repay her father's debt and ordering her to sell her body to do it is a crime. The man easily loses his patience and grabs him by the neck, asking him not to mess with him. Leviathan immediately acts up, hitting each one of the thugs with its power. Noah points the cursed sword at them and asks them if they wish to continue. But after going through that immense pain, the thugs decide to leave the place with a threat. Noah asks the owner to send those men to him if they ever return, and Zoe gives him a card with his information. That's when the owner finally finds out that Noah is the 13th prince, and everyone in the place is surprised. Ignoring their reaction, Noah tells Alice that her song was very nice and asks her how much her living expenses per month are. Alice explains that she also has her mother's treatment to pay for, so Noah offers her 25 rein, saying that he'll pay her that much every month so she can concentrate on singing, and he'll also increase the amount if she improves. Once she's out of her initial shock, Alice smiles and and thanks him, so Noah picks up her hat and asks her to let him hear how the song ends. When Noah returns to the palace, he notices a group of men outside the gates, and Evelyn informs him that they called themselves lenders and said that they wanted to apologize to him. Noah realizes that they're the group of thugs from before and assumes that they finally learned who he was. He simply asks Evelyn to send them away and to tell them that a prince is not someone they can just see whenever they want. Evelyn follows his orders, and Henry praises him for handling the situation that way. After all, granting an audience to men like them without a second thought would devalue the standing of royalty and his princedom. Noah admits that that's also true, but he mentions that he actually had another reason. Once they go inside, he explains the situation, saying that he wants to aid a singer. That's why he felt that letting the thugs think that he was still angry would stop them from bothering her any further. Henry tells him that he's impressed he could think that far ahead at his age, because Frank and Gary are closer to his age, but they don't think that way. They're all still kids after all, especially Gary, who still hasn't learned his manners despite all the teaching he receives. Noah knows that even though they may be his brothers, they have different mothers. However, since Henry and Gary have the same mother, he supposes that they have a different sort of connection. Leaving that aside, Henry decides to talk about his magic sword, since it seems like he's managed to master it. Noah tells him that it's thanks to him, because he was right when he told him that the sword has its own will. Henry then asks him how he carries it around, because the sword is too big for him. Noah clarifies that it actually isn't, and decides to give him a demonstration by materializing the sword in his hand. Henry jumps from his seat, clearly taken off guard, and Noah explains that the sword was hidden in his sleeve. He makes Leviathan transform into a tiny sword, saying that that's how he keeps it in his sleeve all the time. Noah explains that Leviathan taught him that itself, and Henry simply tries to process that information. After all, that thing was isolated as a national treasure for 2 centuries, and even the records from before then mentioned nothing of the sort. That night, Noah decides to show him where the thugs are outside the palace, but they have clearly lost all their patience after being there all day. One of them finally snaps as soon as he sees Noah and asks him to stop ignoring them. His comrades try to stop him from talking any further, but the man threatens him, saying that he'll kill him anytime and any place. With only one look, Noah paralyzes him, so the others finally manage to take him down. Henry asks him what he did this time, and Noah explains that he unleashed just a tiny bit of Leviathan's power and used it to threaten them. Later in the evening, Noah attends a celebration led by a man named Raydock and is received with a round of applause. Everyone's excited to see the 13th prince, mentioning that he looks so dignified for such a young boy. Raydock asks Noah what the thing at his waist is, and Noah informs him that it's a gift from the crown prince, a sword called Leviathan. Everyone goes silent at that, clearly surprised that he's carrying a national treasure around. Soon enough, the people start whispering things, but one man laughs and says that it's probably just a toy replica. However, when Noah looks at him, he realizes his mistake and quickly tries to play it off, pretending he didn't say anything. It's way too late though, and Leviathan decides to release a small part of its power, flooding the room with a dark aura. Some people are unable to breathe, and they start going insane at the sickening sensation, so Noah asks Leviathan to stop. The room quickly goes back to normal, and Noah understands that Leviathan was angry because its master was insulted. He mentions that he appreciates its loyalty, but clarifies that that was too much. Raydock applauds him and tells him that that was impressive, and he's sure everyone here felt very close to death for a moment there. That is the real power of a national treasure, and he won control of that overwhelming power. All the people finally start recognizing Noah's power, and he quickly gains their respect as the 13th imperial prince. Another round of applause follows, and Raydock asks Noah what they should do about the man who insulted him. Noah simply asks him to leave him be, because he has nowhere left to turn anyway. One by one, all the people start introducing themselves to the prince, and Noah greets them politely. Lance Rawlinson, the traitor, introduces himself and tells him that he can't thank him enough for the honor of this opportunity he has granted them. After him follows Byron Allen, the head of the Allen Company, and his daughter, Cindy Allen. After they introduce themselves, Noah asks Byron if his daughter is adopted, and Allen is surprised that he knew about that. Noah clarifies that he can tell by looking, and he knows that Allen is the 2nd or 3rd generation. His bearing is that of one who was born into a high rank, but his daughter lacks that. What's more, he also can tell that he took in a former slave as his daughter. The moment she felt flustered, she gave Noah an inquiring look, and that's a look unique to people who have been slaves. Allen quickly kneels before him and tells him that he's correct, because he originally bought Cindy as a slave, but she learns very fast, so he's been teaching her as his adopted daughter. Noah smiles approvingly, saying that he loves stories like that, so he'll invite them to his mansion sometime because he'd like to hear more about her. This surprises everyone around, so Allen accepts and knows that it is already time to leave. Raydock mentions that he's a clever man, because if he stayed any longer, he would invite too much envy. After all, he was the first one to be acknowledged by the prince. Noah tells him that there's another reason he could tell Cindy wasn't his real daughter, and it's because she's been protecting Allen since the first time he used the sword as a threat. A girl her age would normally be protected herself, but this is not the case. Raydock admits that it was very perceptive of him to see that from the start, and he couldn't be more impressed today. The next day, as Noah is walking through the city, he runs into one of his brothers, the 8th prince, Oscar Ararat. Noah tells him that he was just taking a stroll, and Oscar finds it interesting that he's doing it without a carriage. Since he seemingly has nothing to do, Oscar asks him to join him in a treasure hunt. Noah accepts, and the two of them go to Cobalt Street, where antiques from all over the Empire can be found. Oscar mentions that they can find plenty of counterfeits as well, so finding the real treasures among them is something any noble should be able to do. After spending the day looking for treasures, Oscar gives up and tells him that they failed today. Even thought they had no luck at all, Noah decides to buy a book for 3 rein, only because it made him a bit curious. When Oscar sees the book in his hands, he's surprised to see that it's the original grimoire of Andrea, the legendary sorcerer. That's a genuine treasure, and depending on what's in it, he could get 1,000 rein for it. Oscar asks him how he knew what it was, but Noah actually didn't know. However, the moment he touched it, a plus was added to his win stat, and he only bought it for that. Leviathan reacts to the grimoire, so Noah points the sword at the book, knowing that only beings with their own will can add to his stats, which means this book has something in it. A dark aura comes out of it, and when the grimoire falls on the ground, it opens in a specific page, activating a magic circle. The dark aura that comes out of it becomes much stronger, and Oscar quickly realizes that it is a forbidden tome with the sorcerer's soul sealed inside. He asks Noah to run, and explains that that's the vengeful spirit of the great sorcerer who mastered wind. Noah doesn't move from his place, standing firm as he uses Leviathan against the spirit, creating a powerful torrent of water. Noah notices a change in his stats, but he ignores it to make sure that his brother is alright. Oscar is simply surprised that he didn't cause any damage to the city with that attack, since he aimed it upward, and he can't believe that he was able to make that call in a mere instant. A man suddenly approaches them and informs them that he runs an antique shop on this street. He introduces himself as Alan Bardsley, and says that having witnessed the prince's remarkable feat, he has an article that he would like him to see. Since he's talking about a possible treasure, Noah and Oscar decide to follow him to his shop. Alan then shows them a ring that will only show its true form when its true owner appears. H explains that he has shown it to many people, but it never responds to any of them. Noah asks him if it isn't just trash in that case, and Alan tells him that he thought so himself and tried to get rid of it many times, but it always comes back for some reason. Once he gets rid of it, it's always back in his store before he knows it, so he is quite certain there is something to it. Oscar mentions that it sounds interesting, so he asks Noah to try it on to see what happens. Noah accepts and tries it on, and the ring almost immediately starts glowing red, confirming his level limit. Noah is surprised to hear the voice that comes from the ring, which tells him that the rarity is SSS, and he has been recognized as the new owner. The ring suddenly transforms into an armor, and Noah quickly checks his stats, but sees no change in them. It's not the same sort of being as that grimoire or Leviathan, but it seems to have many uses, so he decides to take it. Noah tells Alan that he'll take the ring, saying that he'll have payment sent to him later. Oscar quickly jumps in and offers to pay it for him, asking him to consider it as a gift from him. Noah can't say no to that, and Oscar mentions that he first got a magic sword, and now he has a magic armor, so there really is something different about him. The two of them finally leave after that, and Oscar leaves Noah with Zoe, though he asks him if he doesn't want him to take him home. Noah politely declines the offer, saying that someone is coming for him. Just as they're about to say goodbye, the man from before suddenly lunges at Noah, trying to kill him with a sword. Zoe quickly gets in the way to protect him, but Noah activates his ring, creating a shield to block the attack. The carriage driver jumps at the man to hold him down, and Oscar asks Noah to explain what he did. Noah tells him that he linked the ring he gifted him with Leviathan, so it seems to have reacted to his hostility with automatic defense. Oscar then realizes that he has already mastered it, which is truly incredible to him. After dealing with that man, Noah decides to go to Raid Street again to see Alachi's performance. That man is already done for after he attacked him, so he's planning to tell her later so she doesn't worry anymore. However, it seems that there are more things she can worry about, since a drunk man suddenly gets on stage and approaches her, asking her to let him pour her a drink. Before Alachi can decline the offer, another drunk man gets on stage as well and fights him, saying that he saw her first. Just as they're about to throw hands, Noah gets on stage and creates another shield with his ring, stopping his fists at the same time. Knowing that it's still not enough, he uses Leviathan to give them an electric shock, so the men quickly run away from the place. The owner approaches him to apologize, but Noah simply asks him not to let guys like them in here anymore. The owner tells him that it is customers like them who keep his business alive, so there's nothing he can do about it for the sake of his business. Noah quickly understands the situation and tells him that he will purchase his business in that case. As soon as he says the word, Zoe immediately gives the owner a bag of money. Noah tells him that he's buying the business for 1,000 rein and asks him if that covers it. After snapping out of his shock, the owner instantly agrees, almost overwhelmed, and thanks him for saving him like that. Once that's settled, Alachi approaches Noah and tells him that she doesn't know how to repay him for doing all of this for her. Noah tells her that she just has to sing, because what he wants from her is her music, and that is why all she needs to do is keep singing. Alachi asks him if he really likes her singing that much, and Noah confirms it, saying that he can see her potential. He also tells her that he wants the Emperor to hear her sing one day, so she has to devote herself to singing until that happens. Alachi is clearly moved by his words, and she can't even hold her tears of happiness anymore, but she gladly accepts. Noah finally goes back to his seat next to Zoe, and Alachi walks back on stage to continue her performance, like she always does. Once the public is quiet quiet enough, she asks everyone to listen to one more song of hers. This time, she gives it the best she has and sings for everyone with emotion, wanting to do better every time. Noah quietly listens to her melodic voice with a smile and confirms that his judgment was truly spot on in this case, because even after everything he saw that day, he knows that this right here is the real treasure he was looking for. Some days after that, Evelyn informs Noah that he has a guest, and it's dead Marley, Governor General of Holjoy. Noah remembers him as that up-and-comer from his fief, so he orders to let him in, saying that he'll be right there in no time. It is explained that the royal family has a custom of granting fiefs to princes so that they can learn about government affairs. For that reason, the people of each fief revere the prince serving as their lord as if he were a monarch. Dead Marley, who was born in Almeria but now works in a land called Holjoy, is no exception. He kneels before Noah and introduces himself, saying that it is truly a pleasure to stand in his royal presence. Noah asks him to have a seat, saying that there's no need for such formalities, since this is the second time they've met. Marley affirms this because he actually introduced himself to him about a year and a half ago when the emperor appointed him as governor general. Noah asks him how things have been going since he was given an imperial order to manage flood control in Holjoy. Marley doesn't have to say a word because just his expression is enough to let him know that it isn't going well. Holjoy is a fertile grain-producing region in the bend of a large river, but it suffers from flooding on occasion. The emperor appointed Marley of Almeria, the home of the Water Clan, to govern it in hopes that he could stabilize it. Noah asks him what the problem is, and Marley explains that they haven't received any funding, and they can't use money they don't have. Noah tells him that he should have some funding, because it was an imperial order. Marley explains that the home ministry keeps coming up with excuses, so there's nothing they can do about it. Noah quickly understands what's going on, so he stands up and asks Marley to follow him. In no time, he visits Maverick, the Minister of Finance, and mentions that Marley told him that he's been delaying the distribution of his funds. Of course, Maverick denies this, and clarifies that there's a very good reason for not giving him the money. Noah immediately asks him to be silent if he's going to say that a child wouldn't understand. Maverick is taken by surprise, so he quickly lies and tells him that he wouldn't say something so rude. Noah then asks him to explain himself, and Maverick tells him that Holjoy suffered flood damage yet again last year. Their kind emperor's heart hurts so badly that he granted them a whole year of tax exemption, which means they have leftover tax money, and it is the Ministry of Finance's opinion that they should use that. After hearing that poor excuse, Noah asks him if he's belittling him, and that shocks both Maverick and Marley. Noah states once again that Holjoy had a flood, and the emperor gave them a tax exemption because they had no money to pay. It was kind of him, but that itself is the core of the issue, and he's talking as if they have that money, which makes him wonder if he's belittling him. Maverick quickly stands up in panic and clarifies that that's not what he meant. He nervously explains that he can't send them money right now because of the plan to build the emperor's summer retreat. The emperor is not young anymore, so he should spend his summers not in the hot capital, but in a land that's just a little bit cooler. However, although it's only a retreat, it is for the emperor's use, so naturally, it will be a royal villa. In short, they must build a city that he can call his villa, and that requires a vast amount of money. Marley feels frustrated because if he's bringing the emperor into this, there's no way to refute. Despite this, Noah instantly asks Maverick to be silent and warns him that he's committing a grave crime against the royal family. To say that a flooded region needs flood control, but he's building a villa so he can't spare the money, makes him think that he's taking his father for a fool. Maverick panics once again, completely terrified this time, as he tries to tell him that he misunderstands. He quickly gets on his knees, saying that he meant nothing of the sort, and this is clearly a misunderstanding. Noah asks him to distribute the funds in that case, or he'll have to go and appeal to the emperor himself. Maverick immediately tells him that there's no need for that, because he will supply Holjoy with funding right away, and it will get top priority. Marley stares at the whole thing in shock, realizing just how amazing Noah is, because he got the Minister of Finance to yield without lifting a finger. Without hesitation, Marley tells him that he has his utmost admiration and that the way he negotiates is brilliant. He caught him in his gaffes and contradictions with his verbal mastery, so he's ashamed that he was foolish enough to put him in this position. Noah then understands that Marley thought that because he's a prince, he could use him to force his demands through. Right after the issue is solved, Marley hurries back to proceed with the flood control measures. Noah is summoned by the emperor right after that, so he hurries to see his father. The emperor tells him that he can relax, and decides to start by saying that he did a good job about Holjoy because he heard that he thoroughly routed Maverick. Noah is clearly surprised by that because that only just happened, but he already knows about it. The emperor tells him that information is a weapon, and one he should make a habit of keeping polished. Noah agrees, but clarifies that he only did what anyone would have done. His father admits that he's right, but tells him that what comes naturally does not come easily. There are many slick tongues out there who know how to use flattery, and not many people can do the right thing with natural ease. The emperor places a hand on top of Noah's head, saying that it's most impressive for a boy of only 6. When Noah is asked to stand up, the emperor can see what Leviathan looks like now, and it truly is smaller. Noah then confirms that his own mansion is also within the emperor's information network. The emperor tells him that the idea that he has fully mastered that magic sword, considering its dark history, can only be described as remarkable. Noah knows that if he hadn't stopped Leviathan back then, then, it would have killed everyone in that market, so it's clearly a dark history indeed. His father mentions that it would serve him well to learn the techniques to wield it, so he summoned an instructor of swordsmanship. Just then, a man named Damien Noble introduces himself, and the Emperor informs Noah that he's the Empire's greatest swordsman. It is said that there are none who can match him, so he must learn from him. Damien stands up and tells the Emperor that he would like to request a bout right away. Even though Noah is a child who still knows nothing, he only wants to observe his aptitude, not his technique. The Emperor accepts, so Noah already knows that Damien clearly has his father's trust. Damien wields his massive sword and asks Noah to come at him however he sees fit. Noah grabs Leviathan, and for some reason, the sword strangely reacts, but he still charges at Damien with no hesitation. After the first attack, Leviathan's memories start flowing into him, and it's the memories of all its past owners. Thanks to that, he manages to fight Damien, and even leaves him disarmed in a matter of seconds. Noah realizes that Leviathan truly is a magic sword that chooses its own master, and its previous owners must have been very skilled as well. Damien kneels before the Emperor and apologizes, saying that he has nothing to teach the prince. His strength and speed are indeed those of a child, but he used technique alone to disarm him. The prince already possesses the swordsmanship skill of a master, so it would be presumptuous of him to try to teach him, and he's soundly defeated. The Emperor quickly understands the situation, and he soon starts laughing with joy, saying that that was impressive, and Noah truly is something. That's why he decides that he'll make him head judge in this year's knight selection exam, because there is no one better suited for the job. Noah gladly accepts, saying that he will see this task through. The knight selection exam is an annual event involving participants from all corners of the empire. For this empire, a nation of warriors that treasures its military, it is said that the way of the warrior is the only path to success by merit. In the exam, the fighters who win their regional preliminaries meet in the capital for their final battles. The one who emerges victorious earns the title of knight and immediately joins the upper ranks of society. The first job of the new knight is to become a subordinate of the head judge, and Noah knows that with a talented knight in his service, he could become even stronger. The Emperor then asks how Noah will judge this event, and Damien explains that it'll be by either round robin or elimination, which is the first thing the head judge must decide. Noah says that he has one request, because he wants to do away with the regional preliminaries and do all the judging here in the capital before his own eyes. After all, the empire is vast, and he can't observe all the preliminaries in every region. He wouldn't want any strong candidates to be excluded for arbitrary reasons, and he doesn't want to overlook any talent. The Emperor easily accepts his request, asking him to do as he pleases. Soon after that, Noah asks Zoe if there are any knight selection exam participants in her village. Zoe confirms this, saying that there's one who is their simple village's lone gateway to glory, and the only one their village sends to the exam every year. Noah then tells her that he did away with the regional preliminaries this year, so they can send more if they like. Zoe hesitates for a moment, and tells him that it's nothing of consequence, but the reason their village sends only one challenger is that they can't afford the travel and lodging expenses. Everything costs more in the capital, so it takes donations from all of them just to send one. That one ends up shouldering all of the village's hopes, so they all get very serious about it. Noah doesn't need to hear anything else, and decides that he will do away with that too. After all, he wants to choose from among as many as possible, and he can't overlook any talent for such a reason. That's why he will cover all the travel and lodging expenses, so all challengers can participate. Zoe is taken by surprise, and she assures him that that would make everyone in their village very happy, but it would surely cost a great deal of money. Noah tells her that it doesn't mean arranging everything from nothing, and he asks Dylan to find out how many vacant houses are in the capital, because he wants to buy them all. It's great if that's enough, but if it isn't, they'll build a dormitory of sorts to fix the problem. Noah also asks him to talk to all the merchants they have connections with, and says that he'll go out of town as well. Soon enough, Noah meets with Byron Allen, but he's not satisfied with his estimate, because they're talking about food for the duration of the exam, and his estimate would leave him with a deep deficit. Byron doesn't deny it, but clarifies that this is a request from the 13th prince himself. Noah tells him that he knows that he's lying, because merchants don't give money away out of mere compassion. Without beating around the bush, he asks him what he wants from him, and Byron is surprised that a boy his age, and a noble at that, understands the world so well. Noah tells him that it's more like using money wastefully is part of his job. Byron admits that he never ceases to amaze him, and he finally decides to tell him what he wants. He mentions that there is a palace employment exam, run on roughly the same scale as the knight selection exam. That's why he was hoping he would know what sorts of people are hired. Noah quickly understands that he wants to put a girl in the palace, because if he had the support of someone in the palace, he'd be the first to hear any new information, and if she were to be ordered to spend nights with the emperor as a consort, the profits would be immeasurable. Byron quickly tells him that this has nothing to do with what he's asked of him, and he has already sent a token of his gratitude to his mansion. Noah admits that he's smart for sending advance payment, but he decides to give him one condition. If it's a girl he likes, he'll put in a good word, but it must be a girl he sincerely approves of. Byron thanks him and assures him that he will choose one who measures up to his standards. Just then, he kneels in front of him, saying that for a man like him, his kindness and keen perception elevate above all others, so he'd like him to allow him to add add the crest of the 13th prince to his store sign. Noah asks him if he will fully devote himself to his service, and both Byron and Cindy agree. Noah finally accepts, but he warns them that he will not tolerate betrayal. That night, he realizes that accepting Byron as a subordinate increased his stats, so if he keeps this up, he can get even stronger. Noah notices that one of his stats went down, and the SS on water is gone, which means something happened in Almeria. He immediately tells Zoe that he's going to see the Emperor, so she must tell the driver that they're heading for the palace now. Once in front of the Emperor, Noah informs him that there's been a change in Almeria. His father asks him how he found out, and Noah assumes that he knows about it. However, the Emperor clarifies that he merely noticed the signs. Noah tells him that what the signs indicated has indeed come to pass, and just then, a servant approaches the Emperor to inform him about something. Once he hears the news, the Emperor tells Noah that he truly is impressive because something indeed happened, and there has been a rebellion in Almeria. The Emperor asks him how large he believes it is, and Noah considers the fact that his SS just dropped to S, so it might look like it dropped by half. However, it only went down by one rank out of several, which means that it's a small scale at the moment. He decides to give that answer, and the Emperor tells him he's correct, because the report identified 5,000 rebels. Their numbers are low, and it's in his fief, so he wants to know if he has any intention of putting it down himself. Noah tells him that that's impossible, unfortunately, because he's still young and unfamiliar with combat. He doesn't know whether the soldiers would listen to him, so if they're to send a prince to subjugate it, he thinks it should be one of his older brothers. The Emperor wasn't expecting that answer, since he looked at the situation so objectively before refusing. Seemingly pleased, he decides to stand by Noah's judgment and choose another. He also asks him if there's one he would recommend, and Noah tells him that, of the princes, he believes Henry is the best choice. After all, with such low numbers, the orthodox approach is to suppress them head-on. As the most prudent of his brothers, he believes Henry is up to the task in this case. The Emperor tells him that he made a fine choice, and decides to summon Henry right away. Soon after, Henry is in a carriage with Noah and asks him if he's really sure about this, because it could have been his chance. The Empire is a nation of warriors, so a great achievement in battle now could benefit him later. Noah tells him that he is not well learned enough for such a sudden deployment, so even if he survived, many soldiers would likely die in vain. Henry mentions that he's calm and collected as ever, but just then, Noah senses a warning from Leviathan. He immediately knows that the enemy is here, so he orders stopping the carriage. Leviathan reacted to them, so it's him they're after, and he can't get his brother involved. Once the carriage stops, Noah jumps out of it, using Leviathan and his ring to surround himself with shields and block the sudden water attack that strikes him. The enemies are all water users, so Noah already knows that they're the Almeria rebels, and he uses Leviathan to take them all down. Once it's all over, Henry approaches the corpses, saying that it would have been useful to interrogate them. He had heard that the rebel army was centered around cavalrymen, but they apparently also had people like these. Noah clarifies that he didn't kill them, and explains that after cutting them down, he used Leviathan's threat to knock them unconscious, because people like these are too likely to take their own lives. Henry confirms that they're all breathing, and Noah tells him that he will let him handle them. The next day, Noah decides to meet with Byron, since he does business in the area surrounding Almeria as well. Before saying anything, Noah warns him that he can consider himself dead if he tells anyone this. Only then, he mentions that there's been a rebellion in Almeria, and he's been told that cavalrymen are the center of their forces. Noah gives him 10,000 rein and asks him to purchase all the horse feed in the fief immediately. Byron accepts his order at once, asking him if he should secure the standard rations as well. Noah tells him that they don't need them, because war horses are not raised in Almeria. According to his brother, the rebels' horses were purchased elsewhere, and there's only so much horse feed they could steal from citizens. Byron quickly understands that if they took the soldiers' rations, they'd start looting, which is truly a brilliant reasoning, and he decides to get started at once.